Hey. So I wanted to come on today and talk about such an important topic that has been weighing heavy on my heart to share with all of you. I think a lot of us think that once we heal, like that's all we would have to do, right? We would become like a new version of ourselves because we would heal, and hence that our life would completely change. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying healing isn't powerful, because you definitely need the healing. Healing is necessary. Healing will change you. But what I'm actually kind of realizing now is that on top of our healing, we also need to take an additional step and shift our identity into this new version of us. You can heal, but you can still stay stuck in the same identity, which means like maybe you'll change a few things here and there, and then boom, you're feeling like you are in your new identity because you're changing things, but in the same time you are still staying in that same identity. So like you're just in the cycle doing the same things because you've healed, but your thought processes are still stuck in that old version of you a bit, and so you're probably still not fully believing into that new version of you. So this realization really hit me hard this week. Honestly, it actually changed everything for me. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to my channel. If you are new, welcome. If you are coming back, welcome back. I'm so glad to have you. My name is Cassie, and on this channel, we talk all things of healing, self-love, and self-care, and of course, becoming your dream woman. You know, healing isn't the final step in becoming your dream woman. See, I think sometimes we do all of the inner work. You know, we journal, we pray, we cry, we process this trauma, we regulate our nervous system, and we start becoming more self-aware. And then when life still doesn't fully change yet, we start wondering like, what am I doing wrong? Why isn't this working for me? Why do I still feel stuck? Are you feeling that? Or have you ever felt that way? Because yeah, that's the way I have felt for the last like 8 months to a year. But I'm so grateful that God opened my eyes to a few more things that I needed to see more clearly. And one of them, you know, was like healing, and it removed the wounds. But the identity actually determines the life that you allow yourself to live after the healing process. And this right here, yeah. This is when I realized that I've done so much healing work, and I really had changed in many ways. Like honestly, like 90% of my life was moving towards like this new version of me. For instance, my habits were changing, my routines were changing, my discipline was changing, my actions were changing. But there was still a little percentage of me that was still emotionally attached to my old story. And that little piece, it weighed heavy. So even though it was just a thin slice in the pie, it weighed heavy on my identity, on my self-concept, on lots of things. What we have to understand in this process is that our thoughts are not small things. No, our thoughts dictate our confidence, our self-worth, our actions, our habits, our expectations of ourselves and others, and our energy. So our thoughts literally shape our identity, and our identity shapes our reality. Because we don't get what we want. No, of course not. We get what we are aligned with, of who we believe that we are. So if deep down you're still identifying with struggle, lack, pain, failure, sickness, unworthiness, rejection, then your life is going to continue producing evidence of that identity. Even if consciously you're trying to become someone new. That's the part that nobody talks about. I realized I was still living from my old identity. And for me, this hit me deeply around my health and my fitness journey. I felt trapped. I felt so frustrated. I felt like, why can't I win this battle? Why does this keep me feel like I'm continuing looping? Why do I feel like no matter what I do, I can't fully break free from this? And the crazy thing about this whole story is that I truly felt that God healed me. Like I trusted that. I felt that. I had even moments of proof. He was showing to me that he did do it. Breakthrough around this. And there was moments that I knew, yes, my body was healed. But then those old thoughts would creep back in. What if you're stuck like this forever? What if nothing ever changes? What if your body never fully heals? And instead of rejecting those thoughts, I accepted them because they felt familiar. They felt normal. And unfortunately, they felt like me. And that was the problem. The old identity will try to come back. And I figured this wasn't going to be such a big thing for me because I've done a lot of the healing. I've done so much. So I thought this was going to be just a skate in the park. But unfortunately, God showed me that my old identity will always try to come back before it fully dies away. And there was times that I knew that, right? Especially in the beginning. But like I said, I thought because I did all of this work, it wouldn't have happened to me. And I just want you to understand that too. Even if you have gone on your journey and you have done a lot of work and you're still feeling stuck, you may need to do a little reflection on yourself to see if you are still stuck with a little bit, right? It doesn't take much to keep you in that old timeline. Even if it's just a little bit, you're going to stay there. So check and do a reflection and see if you are accepting any of your old thoughts, the old version of you, any pieces of it, because it can't come with you where you're going. You'll have a choice if you accept those old thoughts or if you're going to reject them. Because every thought that you end up entertaining, you end up feeding it. You end up giving it more power. With that power, it starts to grow. But what we need to starve those thoughts. You need to starve them like your life depended on it, because it kind of does. If you truly want to go to this new version of you and live a completely different life, you're going to have to really starve out those old thoughts. Because once you starve them out for long enough, you rebuke it enough, it goes away, it falls away, because it knows, okay, she's learned her lesson and this doesn't have any power. But if we entertain it, then it's going to be basically that we're still needing to learn that lesson of whatever that may be. If you keep on focusing on the issues, then you're going to magnify the problem. If you keep speaking death over yourself, your mind and body responds to that story. And if you keep identifying with that old version of yourself, you're going to keep on resurrecting that same version of you. And I didn't even realize this is what I was doing. I thought I had already done enough work, but nope, I didn't. This still can be an issue. Don't think, oh, I already healed this, I'm good. Or, oh, I already worked through this, I don't need to do this anymore. No, which I'm not saying you're going to need to heal, right? But you're not going to want to accept them. You have to rebuke them. Because if you let them linger in your energy for too long, then you just start accepting it like it's yours. And that's exactly kind of what happened, because I was telling myself, I don't need to do any more work. I'm healed. I've done all of this work, which was so true, right? I did do the work, but I let those thoughts linger, and then they started growing in my mind. Thankfully, in this process, though, God kept on nudging me, right? Even though I was trying to like say, I've already done all of this stuff, you know? He kept on trying to get my attention with all of this. And honestly, I ignored it for a while. My ego didn't want to believe that there was still another layer. And sometimes healing does happen in layers. And maybe, you need to hear this today too, because healing doesn't happen all at once. Layers underneath those layers, right? You're peeling back the layers of the onion. Sometimes God allows things to surface again, not because you failed, but because there's another level that He's trying to free you from. And sometimes that old identity has had such a strong hold over your life that you have to reject it over and over again before it finally loses its power. It's kind of like a boxing match, right? You knock it down and then a little arm comes up, or the shoulder, the shoulder lifts up a little bit, and you're back into the fight, right? But you gotta say, nope, you're down for the counts. We're not doing this anymore. We're not believing this story anymore. And eventually that old identity will get kicked out for good. The revelation with this, totally changed me. And what's crazy is this revelation came through so powerfully after the new moon in Taurus. Like, God was revealing so much to me at this time, not just about my health, but also about my business, my finances, my future. But one of the biggest revelations that I had was that I didn't need more healing. I needed to stop agreeing with that old story. That hit me so deep, right? Because my body was never the problem anymore. My mindset was just still identifying with that struggle. My mindset was still accepting that pain. And once I saw that, everything was able to shift. The new moon in Taurus was Saturday, and then on Sunday I went to church because we were going through a series of Moses at church, and this was the final week of it. Pastor had actually gone to Egypt and visited the places connected to the Moses story. Like the Nile River, the mountains, the place where Moses walked, the burning bush, all of these things. And they were talking about the moments when Pharaoh came back after the Israelites, again, after finally, letting them go. And so, they thought that they were free until they seen Pharaoh and his army coming back. And then the Israelites, they got scared, right? And they're like, why did you bring us here if they're gonna come and take us, and things like that. After the Israelites had already seen God move, they saw the miracles that God can do. They saw the plagues. There was 10 plagues in the Moses story, if you're not familiar with the Bible. And they saw his power. But the second that everything looked impossible again, fear came back loud and clear. Old thinking came back. They immediately started believing that they were trapped and that they were going to die there. And there was no way out because they were, honestly, that's exactly, what happens to us as well. God can perform miracles in our lives. And the second that these circumstances look scary again, our old identities starts talking. Fear starts talking, lack starts talking, doubt starts talking. But, Moses had to tell them, stand still. They stood still, and then God parted the Red Sea. And that part is so powerful because sometimes your breakthrough is already there, but your mind is still stuck in Egypt. Sometimes your body has already healed, but your identity is still attached to that sickness. Sometimes the door is already open, but your thoughts are still chained to that fear. So now I understand. I cannot keep feeding those thoughts. I cannot keep giving energy to those old beliefs. And I cannot keep resurrecting the version of me that God already delivered me from. And maybe that's what you need to do today too. Maybe you need to stop feeding the old story, your old mindsets, your old habits, your old fears, and of course, that old identity. Maybe you need to start saying, no, that is no longer who I am. No matter how familiar it may feel to you, no matter how loud it can get, because sometimes those voices does get a little loud, right? No matter how many times it tries to return, you have to still be able to speak life over yourself. And I literally started telling myself, my cells are healthy, my body is strong, I'm thriving, I'm free, I am safe, I am healed. I am becoming the person that God created me to be. And no, it's not about pretending. It's about choosing agreement with truth instead of agreeing with your fear. Because the enemy wants to keep you tied to that old version of yourself. The enemy wants you to feel discouraged, to feel defeated, exhausted, stuck in those same cycles like it is never going to end. But God is trying to lead you into freedom. And freedom requires a new identity. So if you are sitting here feeling frustrated, feeling stuck, feeling like, oh, I've done all of this healing work, why hasn't my life fully changed? Well, you need to check in with your identity, check your thoughts that you keep accepting, check the story that you keep replaying, because maybe it's not the healing that didn't work. Maybe it's the part of you that is still emotionally living in the old timeline. And that doesn't mean that you failed. It just means that there's another layer ready to be released. So stop feeding the old story. Stop resurrecting your old identity. And stop agreeing with fear. And start stepping fully into the new version of yourself. Because your new life requires a new identity. And I promise you, when you finally let that old version of yourself die, your whole life will begin to change. I hope that this was inspiring. So keep going. Keep trusting God on your journey if you are letting God lead you. And if not, start praying and asking Him to help you. And also keep renewing your mind. It's going to be an ongoing practice to keep fresh, to keep good, and to keep yourself from being stagnant in that old identity. And I love you. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.